Hello and welcome to today's live stream, which is all about what to do post-lockdown to catch up with year 4, and we'll also be looking at mixed year 3 and 4. We're an hour earlier today because clocks are changed overnight. Well, it's still 9 o'clock, but if you're not in the UK, it feels an hour earlier, unless you've changed to 2. And so it is summertime and it's absolutely pouring down, so you can probably hear the rain in the background. So you really know it's British summertime. So, year 4, where do we begin? Well, first of all, you may feel totally comfortable, happy and confident with what you're doing. You might feel, what my school have instructed me to do, the scheme I've got, it's working for me. My children have kept mainly on track. In that case, you do not need this video. You really don't. I'm sure you've got tons of other things to be focusing on. Any teacher who is still standing at this stage is a complete hero. Even if you're not standing, you're still a hero. Just be kind to yourself. If you're still teaching this week, only a few more get-ups, only 4 more get-ups. If you finished for the holidays already, then well done you. You have survived. I don't know why you're up, just sleep. Got some viewers. If you want to say hi, that's great. If you've got any questions, I will take your questions as a priority. I'll jump in and take those. Just ask anything. So, year 4, if you have not got a class who is on track, that you're comfortable and confident with, let's talk about what you need to do. So my 5 steps, as ever, I've got my 5-step guide. This isn't quite live yet. I have had quite a week. My whole family has had COVID, among other things. We are all getting better now, thank goodness. This will be live by the end of the day. authenticmaths.co.uk/worksheets. You will find this and all the other documents that it links to as well there, or they will be in the description to this video, which people can't always see on their phones, but can usually see on a laptop by the end of today. So it's not quite live yet. Apologies for that. It should have been, but we're getting there. So step 1 is what to do about your children who are struggling. Now, is a child struggling or not is the first question. And in year 4 or mixed year 3-4 at this stage, that means a child who, when they are doing small calculations, something like 8 add 5, or maybe even 68 add 6, something like that, they are counting on or back 1 at a time, instead of being able to do that in a maximum of 2 steps. So that's what you really need to diagnose. Are your children still counting on or back 1 at a time for small calculations that they should be doing more rapidly? And the ones who are still counting on or back 1 at a time need an intervention. And in step 1 here, it is explained. I explained it much more last week for the year 3 teaching in the live stream. I'm not going to explain it today. It's an intervention called Subordinating Partitioning, which means they're just partitioning small numbers without thinking about it. That's where they need to be by now. So it's one that either you can oversee as a teacher, or you can maybe get some intervention work done with some children. Or personally, probably for year 4, I would try and get them doing some independent working at some times a day and just diagnose and bring out the children who need this intervention and work through it. So we want to get them subordinating partitioning so they can focus on the bigger calculations, because those smaller parts where they're just doing, if they're doing a column addition and they're just having to add 2 or 3 numbers within that column addition, they can do that really quickly without having to apply a lot of thought to it, so they can think about the bigger picture. They need to be able to subordinate partitioning. And in point 1 here, there's also a link to a series which will give you some help and advice if you've got children who are struggling at deeper levels than that. But that's the standard intervention that's needed by this stage in either year 4 or in a mixed year 3-4 class. Right. Step 2 is deliberately teach the number line and the topics linked to the number line. Now, everything that I do and everything I'm about is about telling teachers that they need to focus on teaching the maps and structures of primary maths first, and then the methods click into place much more easily. So in this case, the map is the number line. Children need to be able to zoom in and out on that number line and move left and right. It needs to be clearly anchored in their imagination. They need to be able to place numbers on it. And then lots of other topics will just flow from that. So here, deliberately teach the number line, what else does it say? And linked topics. So there's a video on deliberately introducing the number line, which if hopefully that you've done quite a lot with them by now, but if not, go back to basics and make sure it's anchored there. This is like if you were visiting a town you'd never been to, and your traditional approach was to take your class on lots of routes around that town many times so they really got to know it. But suddenly you've got less time and they're not going to get to know the town well enough. Instead of doing it in the same way, you need to give them a map of the town and really spend time teaching the map of the town. And then when you do routes, take time to link them to that map so that the understanding the map and the understanding the routes develops together. And then those routes will stick even though you haven't got as much time. And you can start to teach different routes more quickly because they know the map. And even if you don't teach all the routes, if they come across those routes in the future, they're going to anchor and make sense more quickly. So that's what we're doing here. Deliberately teaching the number line, zooming in and out. You can do a bit of this. We've got another term left. And there's a video on mental addition and subtraction on the number line. You definitely want to do some of that to consolidate, and it's moving from a 10-section number line to an open number line, especially in year 4, but it's certainly something that a mixed year 3-4 class that year 3s can be apprentices of. They don't have to be able to do it brilliantly. Foundations of fractions, so we spread out that line. It explains how we say, okay, this is 0 and this is 1. Right, what's this? What's this? And we link 5/4 and 1 1/4. So much happens so quickly when you teach fractions from the number line in this way. The next one is the foundations of decimals, which is very similar. And then we need to go on in year 4, especially to rounding. So that involves making sure children are positioning numbers on the number line when it's at different scales. And then they can see for rounding. And as always, at authenticmaths.co.uk/worksheets, you'll find lots of these amazing worksheets that have been done during lockdown for me by Jeff Kutcher. So this one on rounding to the nearest 10, you can see the 10s on the number line, so it's not quite in focus. You have to draw arrows from the numbers to where they fit, and then you can see which 10 they're closest to and fill that in. And if it's 5, then they learn the convention. And then gradually the scaffolding goes away. There's less detail in this number. They still have to position those numbers and see which 10 they're closest to. And we fade away the detail on the number line and make sure they still understand what they're doing. That's for rounding to the nearest 10. There are other worksheets on rounding there as well. So you need to do a chunk of work on the number line. Hopefully some of this you've done already, but if not, don't worry. Put aside a couple of weeks to focus on the number line and do a bit on each of these topics. It does come together more quickly because it's anchored to that common map of the number line than it will if you're following a textbook scheme. So you get your time efficiencies there. So that is step 2. Step 1 was diagnose and intervene for your children who are struggling. Step 2 is thoroughly teach the number line and the linked topics. Right, step 3 is your work on base 10. This is your second map. We've done the number line, now we are doing base 10. And in years 3 and 4, we move from Dean's, your Dean's apparatus, so it's quite loud, probably in the microphone there, on to your place value counters. These ones are from TTS, they're excellent, they've got decimals in there, and that's why we're moving to them. We link them deliberately to what they are, but then we've got these gorgeous decimals. Some people try and teach decimals with the Deans. I find that doesn't work as well. Place value counters are better. We make those links. We take the time to understand what a tenth is. If you've not seen these place value counters, they're absolutely fabulous because they have the fraction on one side and the decimal on the other. Do you want to draw some diagrams? That's explained in the video that introduces them. You've got your larger ones, but we don't need those until years 4 and 5. And of course on base 10, you may, if you've got children who are struggling to read numbers, do continue to use your arrow cards. These are also a base 10 bit of apparatus for the children who need help to know which digit means which. There's only one way these are going to work to build the number that they're looking at, and then they can take it apart to help them translate numbers into place value counters and answers back into numbers via the arrow cards. So you need to do some solid work on base 10, making sure children are comfortable with those place value counters or your base 10 apparatus. And then you want to revise your column addition and your column subtraction. In year 4, you need to introduce multiplying and dividing by 10 and 100. And there's a video on that, and we can do that with the apparatus, but it explains how to draw other diagrams that help as well. And if children are comfortable and confident with column addition and column subtraction, you can introduce decimals, and you can use that to do a little bit of work on money and measure, calculating with them as well. Just start where you are, do what you use what you've got, do what you can. But that'll give you some extension work for your children who are flying. But it's also worth just slowing down and making sure every child at least knows what the class is trying to do. But they may need a slightly easier maths. If they've got the place value counters, they should be able to do some addition and subtraction with decimals with the apparatus, even if they can't fluently do that as a written method yet. Right. So map 1 was your number line. This is in step 2. Map 2 is base 10. Map 3 is moving on to array and your multiplication and division. And what I'm recommending is that the joy of this is we've got no tables check. Don't even think about doing the tables check. You don't need that stress. It's a crap test anyway. It was designed by a really strange politician who should have nothing to do with children under any circumstances whatsoever. So we don't have that to do, but we can do some amazing work, powerful work to build deep understanding and fluency with tables. So what I'm suggesting is that in the summer term, you focus on 1 table per week, 2 to 9. So that's 8 weeks. You may think, oh, I don't need to do them all, so that cuts down your time. And you may also not get there, in which case just tell the teacher in the next year, we didn't manage the 8 and the 9. You need to start with those and show them how to do it in the same way. So you need to deliberately teach the table. If we're multiplying by 7, 1 7 is 7, 2 7s are 14, and this is practicing their subordinating partitioning. If you go to the first video on multiplication and tables, it explains that, how we're consolidating that intervention that I talked about in step 1. So they're using their fingers still to keep track on how many 7s they've done, but they're picturing in their head what's going on. If they're struggling with that, they need their table set out as the counting beads so they can really see what's going on there still, and it will also help them subordinate partitioning to use the counting beads. So they need to do that. And then you also want to give them to exposure to that table with an array pack. This is an array pack for the 6 times table. So there's your answer to 1 times 6. Under it is your answer to 2 times 6, 3 times 6, and so on. So they can see the links between the different results. And if they've forgotten results, they can start to find efficient ways of calculating that link results that don't require them to skip count every result to get there. So they would see, for example, that 9 6s are 6 less than 10 6s, so you've just got to subtract 6 from 60 to get 54. And they can see the halves, and you can talk about that. And then you want to consolidate all that work on that particular table by doing, these ones are by 7, some standard column multiplication, and then some standard division by the same number that you've just taught the tables for. So if you were to focus on the 7 times table for a week, your first lesson would be on the 7 times table. You'd do lots of skip counting, and then you'd have some array packs. Older children might help you make these. Teaching assistant might help you make them. You might not have... I've got pigeons on the roof. Sorry, it's really loud. On top of the rain. You might not have one per child, but it's just so good to be hands-on. And then as the week goes on, you're doing lots of column multiplication by the number, and then column division by the number. And there are videos that explain you how to do this with apparatus so that children deeply understand what they're doing. And all those videos are linked on this single page handout sheet. And then finally, how to consolidate multiplication division across all the numbers. Well, there's two bits. There's mental multiplication. There's a video on that where you're using arrays to get children thinking organically across all tables. And there's finding fractions of amounts. So when you're finding fractions of amounts, you end up dividing by a number, multiplying by a number, and that practices your mixed multiplication division across all numbers. And there's a video on that as well. So we're getting lots of efficiency here. And by the end of the summer term, you want to be doing some work where it could be any tables. And if you've not covered them all, just miss out the ones you haven't done. And finally is all your applied maths, your shape, space, measure and data. And what I'm saying there is really just start where you are, use what you've got, do what you can, but also use it for a break. You know, the atmosphere will get very overstressed at times this term, and sometimes you just need a break from the number work, the intensity of it. So there's links to the curriculum extracts. Just read them and pick what you feel is right for your class. There are videos on those applied topics as well if you're looking for inspiration. And you see, in Key Stage 2, these topics, these applied topics do flow right through. And they're going to find it so much easier when they're older to really master a topic. In our curriculum, they're sort of fragmented a little bit each year. It's not the most efficient way to teach it. They will be able to catch it up. The applied topics they're not sort of crucial steps, crucial building blocks for number. So if you miss some applied topics, they can be caught up later much more easily. So I've focused on trying to help you prioritise teaching the bits that really matter in this time when we don't have to worry about that tables check. Tables check is not statutory yet. It hasn't gone through Parliament. Feel free to lobby your MP about the fact that it shouldn't. I'm not against tables tests if they track the journey from capacity through fluency to automaticity and help us know where children are on that journey and give children credit for what they do. This one is set up so it doesn't do that. It's just there to stress people and make them rote learn tables because that's what the minister wants, and that's not okay. And he had a budget to use to test the impact of it, and he used it just to test that it forced rote learning of tables and automaticity. He didn't actually care about the impact on teaching and learning. It's just obscene. It needs to go. It needs to be better. Rant over. Right. What else? Let's talk a little bit about behaviour, because a lot of teachers are having a really, really massive rollercoaster emotional ride with their classes as they've come back after lockdown. In years 3 and 4, it is absolutely fine for children to do loads and loads and loads of repetitive calculations, column additions, short multiplication, short division, because they are building their absolute fluency and automaticity with the small calculations that go within those bigger calculations. So you can have a lot of maths lessons where the children are effectively working in silence and you're checking they're on track and showing them things with apparatus in silence if they don't know what to do. I'm recommending a typical lesson can be a good to go lesson where you've got a warm-up task to get children fluent with a lower level skill into a lot of work of the kind of work that I've been doing, which normally starts with a teaching task, but you can do it in silence. This book, Hearing Silence, if you're just moving apparatus and not speaking, if you don't speak, the children are much less likely to speak. And if you are under extreme stress, it's the best way to calm the class down. Like a new parent with a baby that cries and cries and cries, you've got to de-stress the new parent, which is really easy to say and really hard to do. Really, really hard to do. But at least if you know what you're trying to do, if you can't calm down, you probably need a day off to sleep. Just like a grandparent would arrive on the scene and say, right, go to sleep. I'm taking care of this. And then when the parent gets up again, they're more likely to be able to be calm. But there comes a stage when children have worked through a couple of worksheets in the lesson, the whole class has done it, and some children are clearly ready to move on. And I'm recommending Gareth Metcalf's IC Reasoning and IC Problem Solving activities. You can find them so they link to the topic you're teaching, but they're all PDFs. So you go to the index, you click on the topic you want, scroll down then to the end of that topic, because you'll look at them and go, these are too easy for my kids who need a challenge. And it's just because they're graded. So you want to go to the end of the topic and look for those challenges, and you should find something lovely. You can also use some of those topics for some of the applied task teaching. If you are focusing on the number with most of your class, your children who finish will be able to access those IC Reasoning tasks themselves, I would expect. So there's plenty there to keep people going. Mixed year 3-4, I mentioned you just, hang on, what have I done with it? One of these linked documents is the Mixed Year 3-4 curriculum extract here. It's the National Curriculum Reintegrated. A lot of my mixed year teachers find this really useful. So if we look at number, there's two colours here. First colour is year 3, second colour is year 4, and I've just reintegrated the 2 years of the curriculum so you can see what's in what. But with mixed year teaching, you do get the benefit of children being apprentices and then experts, and it's a really powerful way to learn. If you focus on the structures, the number line, the base 10, the array, and everything flows out from there, it really does work for being an apprentice and then an expert. So you don't have to teach two separate small steps approaches. It's not the best way to do mixed year teaching. If it's working for you, don't change it just now. You need to focus on the real challenges you're facing, and if things are working, that's not one of your real challenges. Is that anything? Do we have any questions? I'm going to be signing off in a minute or two, so if you've got any questions, post them now. If you just want to say hi, that would be lovely. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll post this video live and then try and make sure all the linked documents are live by the end of the day. Feeling quite buoyant today. It's just great to be feeling better and to see my husband picking up a bit. He's been pretty poorly. Thank goodness for the vaccines. Heaven only knows what it would have been like without that. Hi, Kate. Thanks for saying hi. How are you? Have you got kids in next week, or are you finished for the holidays now? Oh my goodness, my roof is leaking. Is that it? I'm just going to introduce Arthur. Come here, Arthur. Yay. Say hi to Kate, Arthur. This way. Yeah. It's not having that. Okay, time to sign off. Have a good week. Good luck with it all. It is a massive challenge you're facing, and I just wish you well. You can post questions anytime, and I'll come back and answer them later. Back next week with year 5, and then the following week with year 6.